Today we are going to break down some of the science behind co-regulation, signs that you might be isolating yourself, and some simple practices and tips to bring more connection and co-regulation into your life. This is something I realized at one point in my healing journey. I was missing this element. You can do as much self-healing as possible, but it's only going to take you so far. We cannot entirely heal, grow, change, live our happiest, healthiest lives in isolation or by being hyper-independent. Welcome to Ebbs and Flows with Erin. In this show, we're getting real about navigating the ups and downs of life together. I'm your host, Erin, and we're ditching the pressure to have it all figured out along the way because honestly, nobody does. We'll explore all things healing, growing, creating, and connecting. And if you deal with anxiety, depression, being a highly sensitive person, or just feeling overwhelmed by life sometimes, I see you and this show is for you. My intention with these conversations is simple: to leave you feeling empowered, validated, and most importantly, reminded that you are never alone, no matter where you're at on your own journey. Learning that we all have the power to heal genuinely changed my life. And the best part, healing does not have to be complicated. The smallest changes really can make the biggest impact, and it can be joyful, fulfilling, and something that we do together. So join me in getting real about what it means to heal. Thank you for being here, and now let's get into it. Hello, and welcome to Ebbs and Flows with Erin, or welcome back to Ebbs and Flows with Erin, whether you are listening or watching over on YouTube today. Thank you for being here with me for part 5 of our nervous system regulation series. So far, we have covered Nervous System 101, what it is and why it matters. Part 2 was all about energy healing. Part 3 was all about sound healing. And Part 4 was all about meditation. You can listen to those episodes wherever you're listening to this one right now. And in today's episode, we are going to be exploring something that is often overlooked, and that is connection. Because regulation or healing does not only happen when you are alone. And self-healing does not necessarily have to always mean that you're doing things all on your own. And this is the element that I realized at some point in my deepest healing journey that I was missing. I had been making so much progress in my self-healing, doing my inner work, my inner healing, my self-discovery and self-regulation. And a lot of this time took place during COVID, so connection was a struggle for all of us. But connection is something that we literally require as human beings. And this is something that my therapist taught me, that connection is not just a preference. It is a human need. A basic need is to connect. And in today's world, there's often the narrative of being very independent, hyper-independent, doing things all on your own. It's very easy to isolate yourself, but we require connection to live as our happiest, healthiest, most well-rounded selves. Mentally, physically, emotionally, in all ways. And if you think back in history, as far back as ancient times, connection was a part of everything. People gathered as groups to heal, to rest, to have fun, to be creative. Families were raised by communities. Connecting with others was a huge part of everything that we did. And it's only in this more modern society in recent years that it has become increasingly easy to isolate yourself and to feel like you have to do everything on your own. And that was a large driving factor for me wanting to start doing things like retreats and workshops, like I've been doing for the past year with my partner Lacey in retreats and workshops, bringing women together to feel and to heal and to connect. It's also why in my tagline for Ebbs and Flows, it's heal, grow, create, connect. I came up with that long before I really knew what Ebbs and Flows was even going to be. I just knew that I wanted to begin sharing lessons I was learning in therapy and things I was implementing that were positively impacting my mental health and overall wellness. And those 4 words, heal, grow, create, connect, encapsulated everything that I wanted to use this platform for. And when it comes to connecting, that is something that I feel like gets left behind or forgotten about or not talked about enough when it comes to the world of self-healing, self-development, a healing journey. A lot of it is focused on self-regulation and doing all of your inner work and everything you can do on your healing journey on your own, which is all very important. But connection is one vital part that we cannot forget about because we need it. Our brains, our bodies, our nervous systems literally need connection to thrive, to heal, to grow, to be happy, to be healthy. So on that note, what is co-regulation exactly? Co-regulation refers to the way two or more people mutually influence each other's physiology and emotional states through nonverbal cues, vocal tone, facial expressions, and body language. While self-regulation involves strategies we use on our own, co-regulation underscores the relational aspect of regulation. Our nervous systems are wired to seek safety in the presence of others. There is constantly a subtle energy exchange, or not so subtle all of the time, but there is always an energy exchange going on between us and the people that we are surrounded by and the people that we are surrounding ourselves with. And this energy exchange shapes how safe we feel and how connected we feel. And if you listen to part 1 of this nervous system regulation series, all about the nervous system and polyvagal theory, which polyvagal theory emphasizes the role of the autonomic nervous system, especially the vagus nerve, plays in regulating our health and our behavior. The theory describes the physiological and psychological states which underlie our daily behavior, as well as challenges related to our wellness and mental health. It talks about the differences between our sympathetic fight, flight, or freeze state and our parasympathetic rest and digest state. So in polyvagal theory, the ventral vagal state is where co-regulation and connection happens. So I'm going to read this directly from the Polyvagal Institute. Co-regulation. We naturally and unconsciously send signals of safety or danger to each other, which either encourage or discourage the reduction of psychological and physical distance that operationally defines social engagement behaviors. Polyvagal theory explains how this occurs through our social engagement system. On a physiological level, neural pathways emerging from the ventral vagal complex in the brainstem calm our reaction to the threat while simultaneously enabling facial expressions, head movements, and vocal intonations that let others know we are open to friendly communication. So that's pretty much a more formal way of reiterating the fact that co-regulation is about the energy exchange between two individuals, even nonverbal, and over time, the people that you are surrounding yourself with, their nervous system state can influence your nervous system state. When another person's presence makes us feel safe, we feel safe with another person, our nervous system begins to relax and regulate. We are sent into the parasympathetic rest and digest mode. But say, for example, there's a connection in your life that doesn't make you feel safe, that this person is very dysregulated. This can influence your nervous system to feel dysregulated as well. This is where I want to talk about limbic resonance. This is something that I was learning about, and I'm going to have to read directly from online about this. But limbic resonance is the idea that the capacity for sharing deep emotional states arises from the limbic system in the brain. These states include the dopamine circuit promoted feelings of empathetic harmony and the norepinephrine circuit originated emotional states of fear, anxiety, and anger. So limbic resonance describes the capacity of all mammals, humans included, for sharing emotional states. It refers to an individual's ability to resonate with the emotions of another person on the level of the nervous system, even when they are not directly expressed, again, through our energy exchange. Scientific discoveries have shown that our nervous systems are not separate, self-containing units. From earliest childhood, our brains link with those of the people around us in a silent rhythm. Like all herd animals, we as humans regulate and stabilize our mood by being connected to each other. Through these invisible ties, we share feelings, regulate our hormones, and maintain our emotional and physical health. The limbic resonance we experience in close relationships also influences and changes the structure of our brain and alters how we perceive ourselves and the world around us. So if the people we are surrounded by are in a dysregulated state, it directly affects our biology, and over time, we can become dysregulated as well. This is one of the reasons why the quality of our relationships impacts our health like no other lifestyle factor, and why unhealthy, toxic relationships can make us sick. So you know the sayings of like, who you surround yourself with is who you are. Or I think there's one, the 5 people that you spend the most time with are a direct reflection of who you are. Something like that. It is a fact, mentally, emotionally. You are influenced by the people that you are surrounding yourself with, the people you have connections with. And unfortunately, sometimes these are not connections that we have a choice to make, like when it comes to childhood, your parental connections to your family or whoever is in your closest circle as a young child. You don't really have a choice over who that is. And that is where a lot of our, what we talk about, subconscious conditioning comes from. Traumas can come from that impact our nervous system and our mental, emotional, physical health. And while that can feel defeating in a sense to think about the fact that you've been imprinted on for so long, and a lot of the time by connections that you didn't have a choice over making, I find that it can also be empowering to learn about this, because we can often beat ourselves up about things that we struggle with, and maybe we don't know exactly why we struggle with them, but we do. So learning about how co-regulation works, how limbic resonance works, how the energy and the state of the nervous system of those that we are surrounded with affects our nervous system, and we can take on the energy of and the state of others. We can take on things that aren't ours. While that can feel defeating, it's also empowering, because you know that it is not yours to hold, and that it wasn't something that you really had a choice in taking on or not taking on. It is a scientific fact and a biological fact that this happens. And there are things that we can do once you become an adult and you have more agency over your own life and your health and wellness, that you can do to help yourself shed the weight of those things, shed what is not yours to hold, and move forward with awareness. And awareness is really the gift and the key to everything, to allowing yourself to heal, grow, change in any capacity. We are wired for connection. We are not meant to heal, survive, or regulate in isolation, no matter how tempting it can feel at times, and I get that as well. And that brings us into how trauma and stress can disrupt co-regulation and have maybe wired you to lean away from connecting with others or shutting yourself off emotionally with others. And that can be because past trauma or emotional neglect or connections that left us feeling dysregulated, stressed out, maybe unsupported, can teach you to self-protect by isolating yourself. And this is also something my therapist has talked to me about before, where you can't beat yourself up for doing this or noticing that maybe this is a pattern you have of doing, because it's something that you learned over time to protect yourself, and it made sense for you at a time to protect yourself. Because of course, if your experience with connections in your life has been the opposite of feeling safe in them, you are not really going to feel inclined to want to create more connection in your life or to open yourself up to connection. This isn't something that you're randomly doing to sabotage yourself. It's a learned behavior, a learned survival mechanism, but learning about our need for co-regulation and connection can hopefully empower you. And we're going to get into some signs that you might be self-isolating and some tips to create more connection and co-regulation in your life. But hopefully this can empower you to know that it is safe and necessary to open yourself up to connection in spaces that do feel safe to you, with people that do feel safe to you. And you might be thinking, well, I don't have anyone that feels safe to me. I don't know where to go that feels safe to me. You can start in small ways, which we're going to get into that in a little bit. But with self-isolation comes hyper-independence. And this looks like never wanting to ask for help, or if help is offered to you, you turn it down. Your instinct is to try and do everything by yourself. And this can be disguised as being like a driven, independent person, but it's often a trauma response and not a strength to be hyper independent. It is okay to accept help, to look to others to help you with things, to allow others to show up for you, to support you, to even just hold space for you, listen to you, validate your feelings. I have learned that especially in women, hyper-independence is very common. And it's often because you don't feel safe to trust others, or you don't want to feel like a burden on others, or you have perfectionist tendencies where it feels like if you don't do everything on your own, it's not good enough, or anything you do doesn't feel good enough, and you have to be able to figure things out for yourself, do things for yourself, and putting all that pressure on yourself obviously is not healthy or ideal either. And it's not necessarily easy to break these tendencies of hyper-independence, self-isolation, perfectionism. But again, awareness is the key. Once you are aware of the truth, the root behind these things, and why you're doing them, and why you want to shift out of them, and allow yourself to be more open to looking for connection and being open to connection. In my experience, it unlocks a next level of healing in not only your nervous system and your mental health, physical and emotional health, but your overall experience in this life. So this all goes back to feeling safe. Whenever we're talking about nervous system regulation, what we're talking about is sending signals of safety to our nervous system, to our mind, to our body, because when we feel safe, that is when our nervous system can shift into the parasympathetic rest and digest state that we have to be in order for any healing, growth, or change to take place. And when we don't feel safe with people, we tend to solely rely on self-regulation, which matters, but can only take us so far. And this often leads into a cycle of stress because you're taking on so much on your own, which leads you into isolating, which leads you into further dysregulation. Also because when you're isolating, you are feeling like everything that you're experiencing is only happening to you. And it's when you connect with others that you realize we all have so much more in common than not. And as we say, you are never alone, no matter what you're feeling or experiencing. But when you're alone with only you and your thoughts and your experience and your mind, you can quickly feel very alone. So it's so important to allow yourself to connect with others. Again, in my experience, it's not only validating, but it's empowering. And if you deal with anxiety, it's a reminder that we are all in this together and we have so much more to gain from each other from simply just being in each other's energy. So what are some signs that you might be isolating yourself? Number one is that maybe you're avoiding social connection even though you're also craving social connection. It's interesting how that works. You might be aware that you've been feeling lonely or just, again, craving connection, but then an opportunity comes up for you to socialize, to connect with others, and you avoid going. And the cycle continues where you crave connection, but you're also avoiding connection. And again, that often goes back to the state of our nervous system and not feeling entirely safe to connect with others for whatever reason. Another sign that I have definitely been guilty of a lot in my life, and that is that you say, "I'm fine," when someone asks you how you're doing, when internally you are overwhelmed or you're struggling with something or you have anything going on, but your response is always, "I'm fine." Another sign is that you are always trying to manage things alone, even when you're struggling. Again, this goes back to hyper-independence, which this leads to burnout. Speaking from experience, it leads to burnout, it leads to anxiety, it can lead to depression. All of these things can lead to not only feeling lonely, but deeper mental and emotional struggles and physical, because we know that it's all connected. Another sign is that you feel uncomfortable receiving support from others or comfort as much as you might need it or want it. When it's happening and you are receiving it, you feel uncomfortable and you don't really know how to receive it. You might feel really awkward. You might kind of go into a freeze state instead of really soaking it in and showing your appreciation for it or just allowing it to happen. You might find yourself saying things like, "Oh no, it's fine, I'm fine. No, I'm fine, I know it's fine." Kind of like diminishing the support or comfort that you are receiving. And you might find yourself pushing people away instead of reaching out to people when you are stressed out or struggling with something, which can feel like self-sabotage in a way because you want and need support and connection from the people in your life, but you are wired to feel uncomfortable with it and to avoid it. And so to avoid it, you do the exact opposite of what would actually bring you what you are craving and needing, and that is push away the people that are there to support and care for you. And there's nothing wrong with needing space. It is important to take space. It's important to have alone time. But when space becomes your only coping tool, it may be time to look at that and ask yourself why and get curious about ways that you could begin to open yourself up to more connection in your life. Okay, so let's get into some simple tips and practices to invite more co-regulation and connection into your life. And like every other tool we've talked about so far in this series, you can start small and simple. It does not have to be these ginormous changes that you make that are going to make the most impact. It is the seemingly small, simple things that you do that add up over time that truly make the lasting difference in how you experience your life. Number one, finding one safe person in your life. If you don't feel like you have that in your life yet, that's okay. You can start with doing things like joining group spaces like a group workout class or some sort of workshop or creative class. Maybe you're signing up for a wellness retreat or workshop. Maybe you're volunteering somewhere. And even simpler, you can literally just go to the nail salon and get your nails done. Have a little chat with the nail technician who's doing your nails. That counts as co-regulation. You can go sit down for a coffee at a cafe. You can go walk around the grocery store, and when you're checking out actually make a little bit of conversation with the cashier. Go volunteer somewhere. Did I already say that? There are smaller ways. You don't necessarily have to start with one person in your life to connect with. I was thinking about this. I was getting my nails done today. And I was thinking about this for this episode. Like, you can truly start as small as chatting with the nail technician while you're getting your nails done. Any form of interaction, connection with another human being counts. Especially if you're someone who has been isolating for quite some time now, it's probably going to feel a little bit daunting to you to look to your one safe person. You might not know who that is yet. So another benefit of putting yourself into these other situations that allow for connection and co-regulation is that you may form deeper bonds with people as you do these things that can turn into a safe person for you over time, especially if it's something like a workout class or a hobby class, a creative class, volunteering, attending retreats or workshops. Because if you're going to things like that, you are likely surrounded by somewhat like-minded people. And this is something that in my struggles with anxiety and when I was overcoming my generalized anxiety disorder and depression in the thickest, deepest healing era that I'd had so far, this is something that I challenged myself to do. When I would go to a store and if I was buying something, I challenged myself to make conversation with the cashier or to make conversation with whoever was helping me in whatever circumstance. Again, this was following pandemic lockdown days, so connection was especially foreign to literally everyone. That's something we definitely need to acknowledge too, that I feel like we don't really acknowledge enough. And not that I want to continuously think about that period of life because how depressing, but it is a fact that all really did not happen that long ago, and we are still experiencing the fallout of the whole pandemic situation to this day, and we will for a long time, socially, mentally, emotionally, physically, in all ways. So that is something to keep in mind here, especially when we're talking about co-regulation, connection, and nervous system in general, because all of our nervous systems were put through a very strange ringer for a number of years, and we're still dealing with that. We might not be in lockdown anymore, but things are still wild to navigate as a human being. That's important to remind yourself as well. We are all trying our best here. And just because you tend to isolate doesn't mean that you don't have safe connections. You can have several safe connections, safe people in your life, and still choose to isolate. So you might be able to think of 5 or 10 people right now that you could look to. So these are things that you are going to want to do with those people that can help you to foster more connection and experience the benefits of co-regulation in your life. Things like just sitting in silence with someone that you trust. You know, those friends or family members that you have where you can be hanging out, but you're literally just in each other's presence, not even really doing anything necessarily, but just being in the same room together, and you feel re-energized after that. These are the people we're talking about. And that's for a reason, because you are co-regulating. You can do things like walking together, meditating together, doing breathing practices or grounding practices together, stretching together, dancing together, really doing anything together is co-regulation. Letting someone witness your feelings without feeling like you have to mask them or without expecting this other person to fix them. Just letting your true feelings be seen and heard. If you are struggling with something, try reaching out to a safe person in your life and letting them know, even as simply as, hey, I could use some support right now. Hey, I'm dealing with something, or I'm struggling a bit. I could use some support, or I would appreciate just having a light conversation. You don't necessarily have to tell them that you want to talk about whatever you're dealing with or struggling with, but letting them know that you are dealing with something and that support and them just being there for you is appreciated. I know this is something that I didn't really do for my entire life. I have referenced myself as being a recovering perfectionist, recovering people pleaser. I have heard many times in my past from people in my life of I can't even imagine you being upset. I can't even imagine you being angry. You're always so happy. You're always so chill. And it's really just because I was masking myself at all times, never letting my true feelings be felt or seen. I often felt like I didn't want to ever burden others with my problems, my feelings, so I just wouldn't share them or open up about them. And I've shared on a past episode before about my complete physiological breakdown I had years ago, and a time when I was at my very worst, struggling with this breakdown and so much anxiety. And long story short, I share this story, but I ended up asking my two best friends if they had time to get on a phone call with me because I was driving and in a bad place. And I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that that's the first time in like literally my life, maybe, that I've ever reached out to someone and been like, hey, I could use some support right now. I would appreciate that because I'm struggling. When I shared that story on the podcast episode, I started crying. And I believe that's because, again, I think that's the first time I ever was just straight up that I was struggling. And when I did reach out and voice that and ask for support, they just showed up with like no questions and honestly never looked at me any different. And so thinking about that makes me emotional because thinking of past versions of me, especially myself growing up, but then also into adult life, like that was when I was turning 26. I was 25 at the time. And to see that my friends didn't even question it, it was like, oh, this is okay. It's okay to let people know you're struggling and to let people show up for you. So if you can relate to this, I want you to know that it's okay to allow yourself to be supported. And this is another reason that I feel so blessed and grateful to be able to show up in and curate these spaces with our retreats and workshops for women and healing and feeling and connecting. Because also what I've learned from connecting with these women is that we all crave more connection, and it is so hard for people, especially in the times that we're in. And while you can spend so much time overthinking it, convincing yourself out of being vulnerable or opening up or allowing others to show up for you, they probably most likely are having the same thoughts and feelings or have had at some point. And the point is, we all crave and need connection and can benefit so greatly in so many ways from co-regulation, from just being in the presence of each other's energy. And it's also why I find things like retreats and workshops so powerful because, yes, you can practice yoga at home, you can meditate at home, you can do pretty much any healing or wellness practice or workout at home alone. And I do that majority of the time. But I find that coming together with others and doing these practices in a group space just takes the energy and the impact to a whole nother level. And outside of human beings, animals also count as beings to co-regulate with. There's a lot of science behind that as well. This is why people feel so deeply connected to their pets. And you might notice that your pet, when you are struggling, maybe you're sad or dealing with something, and your pet might be a little bit extra attached to you, wanting to lay on you, comfort you. It's because they feel your energy and they are like little co-regulators. I've said before, but I've always personally felt more connected to animals than even human beings. Like for my entire life, since my earliest memories, I felt the most connection to animals. So I feel this one deeply. And you'll often hear people say things like their pet or an animal got them through a really hard time, or maybe you've had a really bad day and you are in a dysregulated state, but then you find yourself coming out of it and feeling better after seeing or playing with or petting your animal. And that's co-regulation. I read an article recently, The Fascinating Science Behind a Cat's Purr, and they said studies indicate that the frequency of a cat's purr holds therapeutic properties for the human body. More precisely, the vibrations produced by a cat's purr have demonstrated the ability to decrease blood pressure, alleviate stress, and even aid in the process of healing. So as someone with 2 cats in the household, I was happy to hear that. And I definitely believe it because there is nothing more relaxing than when you hear your cat purring, especially when they are laying on you and they're purring and you feel their little vibration. I love my cats. We are currently looking at getting a double cat stroller to walk our cats this summer because unfortunately Lolita, my oldest cat, she's like 2.5, she is afraid of a leash, so that's not going to work. So yeah, we're thinking of getting a double cat stroller. So we are going to be those people on the block. And to be honest, I'm thrilled about it. But yeah, co-regulating with animals counts as well. That's also why there's things like equine therapy, animal therapy. These things exist because there is science behind them working. There's science behind the healing impact that it has on your nervous system, your entire being. But I would suggest, if you are someone who's hearing all this and thinking, none of this is something that I feel ready to do or to try, I don't feel like I have a safe person to go to, I don't feel safe enough or inclined to even start with the group activities or group settings, I am not even in a place where I feel like I am comfortable going to the nail salon and sitting down and getting my nails done. That's okay. My suggestion would be to start with a counselor or a therapist, because that's co-regulation as well. And I have a whole episode as well in the past about therapy. You might not always connect with your therapist the first one that you try. I encourage you to not give up, because from my experience, when you do find one that you connect with and that you're gaining what you're looking for out of it, there is so much benefit to it. There has been a narrative online, especially in the realm of talking about nervous system regulation, where people are like, well, this is why talk therapy isn't enough, because you need to be regulating your nervous system through these practices, you need to be working through your body, you need somatic therapy. And while that's true, I still am a firm believer in talk therapy as well, or even like I've done EMDR therapy through my therapist. There are many different types of therapy, but I believe that it is still incredibly valuable to have a professional to talk to and to work through things with. Yes, you do need to work with your body, your nervous system, and go deeper and do your own work as well. But for all the reasons we're talking about when it comes to connecting and co-regulating and having a safe person, the right therapist for you will be someone who can offer that to you and can help you to reach a point where you do feel comfortable to open yourself up to more connection, where you find yourself having connections and relationships that you feel safe in, and you feel safe to go out into the world and be open to connection rather than shut off and shut down and isolated from it. Because you can do all of the self-healing, all of the self-regulation, which is all important and valuable, but your nervous system knows when it's in isolation and when it is in connection, and we need connection. We require it as human beings. And that really is in large part what brought me here to having this podcast, is the desire to create more and deeper connection with others, more opportunities to connect with others, more opportunities for others to connect with each other, and to see that you are never alone, no matter what you're feeling or experiencing. And more than one thing can be true at the same time. You can prioritize your alone time, creating space for yourself to rest and regenerate, while also prioritizing connection, because you do not have to do this alone. No matter if you're in a healing journey, you're just interested in health and wellness, holistic healing, no matter where you are in your journey, you do not have to do this alone, and you were never meant to do this alone. As my therapist has many times reminded me, we are not meant to do everything on our own. So if you ever find yourself beating yourself up for feeling like you're overwhelmed by the load that you're taking on and feeling like you have to do everything on your own and that you should be able to handle everything on your own and be thriving, stop and remind yourself that is not true. That is not how we are made to survive or thrive. Even just one safe connection, safe interaction can be enough to start co-regulating and start regulating your nervous system, which means that you will feel safer in your mind and your body, which means that you will be able to show up in your daily life in a more balanced way. Because healing, true lasting healing, happens when we feel safe, seen, and supported. So as we come to closing this episode, I will leave you with 2 little questions to reflect on if you choose. Maybe ask yourself, who in my life feels safe to be with? Who do I feel safe and relaxed around when I am with them? And ask yourself, who do I not? And look deeper into that. Ask yourself why that is, and make adjustments as you see fit. And the next question to ask yourself would be, how can I soften myself towards connection, even just a little bit? We are now in June. We are entering the summer season. It is the season of social connection. So this would be an ideal time to do a little bit of exploration around where you're at with feeling safe in connecting with others and looking at ways that you would like to open yourself up to connection. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I hope you find value in this episode. I would love to hear from you guys as always. I am sending so much love and gratitude. Thank you for connecting with me. I look forward to continuing to connect with you. Be sure to follow over on Instagram at EBBS FLOWS too. I'm sending a lot of love and gratitude, and I will talk to you next week. Bye-bye.